And happy birthday, people. Um, Welcome to Ghost of Bacon. I'm your host, Jake Roberts, and have a fun show for you tonight. Have some guests here backstage waiting to pop in. And just going to give a few shout outs. So I see Jan, Penny, Linda, Tommy in the house. Jenny's here. Ray's here. Z is in the chat and in the waiting room here. It's coming on. Tom, good to see you, my friend. Mary, excuse me, David, Carolyn. Gosh, guys, thanks for being so supportive and steady fans of the show. Not a big dog and pony show tonight. Just want to celebrate, the birthday of Sir Francis Bacon. It's coming up on the 22nd. My birthday, of course, is tomorrow. We have John Edwards and Will Russell both have a birthday on January the 10th, a week ago. And Jayson Mercer, his birthday is coming up on the 25th. So we have a whole string of people here who are bacon-oriented who have birthdays right around the same time. So I always think it's fun to throw the bacon birthday bash. So this is the third annual one. Hey, XO, AO, thanks for coming. And he's always so good about telling people to go ahead and smash the like button on the channel. I really appreciate the support. So I'm going to bring in our guests. The first one, of course, is a prominent member of our group. She's one of our people who handles our group and always contributes a lot to the feed. And that's Zee Zantlo, our friend here on Facebook. Thanks for joining me, Z.
Hi, everybody.
I'm going to bring in thank you, Z. I'm going to bring in our next guest who doesn't really need an introduction because he's famous in his own right. That, of course, is Jeff Freeman, my friend. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Oh, man. Yeah, they're famous in his own right. Not well, maybe in my own mind. That's fine. Hi, Z. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I had the opportunity to do so before. So, yeah, thanks for inviting me for the birthday bash.
Of course. Because first of all, this is one of the ones that I like to do just because it's fun. Right, we're not going to be, digging deeply into any real big ciphers or anything like that. But
there's going to be math, Jeff.
Oh, no.
There's a test at the end, Jeff. So take good notes.
Okay. All right, I got my pen. I'm ready.
I mean, I retired, but I'm still kind of in teacher mode sometimes. So we're still waiting for Adam Thomas is supposed to be popping in. I'm hoping everything's okay on his end. Because he's always really reliable and getting a hold of me and so on. So Jayson, unfortunately, was originally going to come, but I had missed something in our group chat. It's Brooke's birthday today, so he's not going to be able to make it. So it'll be the 3 or 4 of us. But speaking of ciphers, Jeff, I wanted to ask you how you and I have kind of been chatting here in Messenger. How did your giveaway go with the cipher?
Well, so far I have 2 people that have solved half of it. And I wasn't sure because honestly, I'm a rookie when it comes to these things myself. So I was struggling with it myself. And I said, well, I'm going to let the smarter people figure this one out. And we did have a couple of folks that have achieved half of it, but they didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really wanted to make sure that we talked about tonight because it's a double encryption because some people have used one step in order to figure out the instructions on how to solve the rest.
Yep.
And once you finish that first part, it should tell you how to read the next message. And I thought it would be fun because the first step is pretty straightforward. It's very it's easy to find out how to do it. All that information is right out there.
Yep.
And the second half, of course, has more to do with the types of stuff that, Will Russell, myself, Adam Thomas, the things that we like to get into. Will Russell, of course, and Z has been doing it. So once you figure out that the directions, it should tell you exactly what to do and how to.
Yeah, we'll see if the 2 that have it so far, half of it, we'll see what they come up with. But I'm glad you explained that tonight. And we may have to put some hints out as we go along if nobody gets it, because
that's what I tried to do the other night when I was watching your show. I put a couple of hints out in the chat.
Yeah, you did. That was good. I saw that. Yep.
Hoping that people would pick up on it. So, and actually, before you popped in, Z and I were kind of chatting here before we started the show, just visiting, and she had mentioned to me how she's watched every single one of your podcasts. And
Really? Oh my gosh, I'm honored.
All
Thank
the Oak Island ones.
yeah.
Oak Island ones.
Yeah, there's some other stuff out there too. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I watched some of the Bigfoot.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
watched a few other things, but not the other show. I don't watch that.
Well, we got Bigfoot coming out again. It's their next season 6. I think they're calling it season 6. Is starting here on the 22nd in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so we're gonna do the, if you don't mind. I know this has nothing to do with Sir Francis Bacon.
Oh, please bring it.
That's all right.
But we're gonna do the first
promotions
episode.
are allowed.
Yeah, we're gonna do the first episode right away, and then we'll probably double them up after that, because we have some other interesting guests coming for our Thursday night Lost Treasures of America, North America. So
That'll be
a lot of fun. Yeah.
Just got a text from our other guest.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, you know where John Edwards is tonight.
I do. I texted him.
Ravens.
I said, "Go Bills," because he's in Buffalo. I said, "John, you're only 3 hours away from me. Just swing up after the game."
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
the Eagles. I came from Philadelphia, and the Eagles won today.
Oh, okay.
But I gave away all my Eagles gear before I left. St. Louis doesn't have.
Well, I was rooting hard for the Lions last night, and it was not fun to watch. It was a hard one to watch, but they had a great season, and so I'm sticking with them, and I have for 30 some years now.
Good for you. That's great. But no, like I said, that's what this episode is always all about. I like to touch base with everyone, what they have, what they've been working on lately. And you have your website, Jeff. I wanted to kind of get into that, and Z has some new finds that she wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, it's just a matter of just visiting. And we have some comments here coming up. Jenny wants to know, did those two people solve the same half? Yes, Jenny.
Yes.
They both solved the first half, and they now need to work on the second half. And now, Linda, I believe in you. She said she tried. I'm sure it failed miserably. I don't think you failed miserably. I think that you probably did a pretty good job and almost got there. So it just takes time and focused attention.
It's time, yeah. I
It's
didn't
all
have
about
the time.
Yep.
I started it.
Well, I figured you would be one of the first ones, Z.
Yeah, well, I when they put the cryptographer on the stamps, they had a bit of cryptography on there too. So I did that.
Oh, cool.
But that was easy, and it took a few minutes. This other one is more complicated.
Yeah, this one's.
And I know it's 2 parts.
Yeah. I tried to make it. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't so easy that someone would just show up and figure it out in the first try.
Yep.
But I also wanted to make sure that it's accessible and based upon what people know of our work, they would be able to figure it out if they just spent some time with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's right. Linda, I did hint at mistakes being something to look for. So if you see a mistake in that message somewhere, that is a clue. It's a part of the message for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, misspellings, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Letters that are not in
You succeeded in making it
mode.
Jenny's telling us she's watched all of your shows.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that very much.
I enjoy the Bigfoot episodes.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I mean, we have, and I always try to go into everything with an open mind. It's even people that now, we got this new thing coming up with the Aztecs that they actually originated in like southwestern United States and then went down. Well, it's not new, but new for me.
Sure.
And then went down there, and then some of them may have come back at some point and hidden treasure and all of that. So that's kind of like shaking my world right now.
Well, it's such an interesting theory, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, who knows?
And there's evidence to support it too. Some, so
There's a lot of treasure buried around that probably will never be found. And then there's other stuff that everybody's looking for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
That's including our favorite island in the North Atlantic.
Including all of us.
Yeah, including all of us. Mary saying happy birthday to the Twin Kings. Thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
Jeff, my sister Penny said, I was going to ask Jake to do it for me. Nice try, Pen.
Hey, if you do the email to me and it's the right answer, I don't care where you got it from, honestly. If you want to give them a little cash or whatever, that's,
You can pay me under the table,
that's
Pen.
a bribery.
You have to
Family
buy a
bribery.
lot of hats.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah, but
like
I'm
that.
glad you mentioned the website. It's really a lot of fun, and I hope to. I hope you will contribute. There is a blog section,
Oh, absolutely.
and also a news section. So whenever you have new news for the Ghost of Bacon podcast or anything you got coming up, books or whatever, please let me know. I'll put it in there as news, and away we go with that. So
I'll
that's
take you up
I
on
want
that.
this to be kind of a website where people can find, my stuff, of course, that would help, but also friends of mine and everybody else that has really interesting podcasts. They may not always relate to, Bacon or Oak Island or Skinwalker Ranch or whatever. It might be something a little, but interesting stories all around. So I'm open to, bringing in stuff from
Absolutely.
lots of different
Thanks.
places.
Yeah, I'm all over that. That's such a great thing you're doing. And
Yeah, I've loved when you've interviewed people even who weren't on the show anymore.
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's great. That's right,
I
Amy.
can't always watch it live, unfortunately.
Well, that's the
fun.
thing.
But we always catch up.
Gave
Let's
homework
see.
on Jeff's show.
Yeah, and Linda, you're absolutely right. Tony does say, Tony Sampson says there's more treasure on the bottom of the ocean than in all the vaults of all the world.
Yep.
100% true.
Yep. Yep.
And he's a guy who would know.
Yes, he would.
Of course,
Yeah.
David says that everybody should be looking for date palm fiber instead. So
I've been looking for Dave on Fiverr, David. Every time I see a picture, I send it to David. It's like, is this the right one?
Well, it was funny. Here's a little inside baseball. When I was in Newfoundland, and Bill Smith and I were marauding around, on a whirlwind tour. At one location, we found what we thought was date palm fiber, and I took a picture,
My.
and I put it in a
bag,
and I took a picture and sent it to David. He goes, I don't think that's
Maybe
fiber. He thought it was just
well, if anybody would know it, he would know it.
He would know it. And he says it looks like vegetation that is rotting. So let's see.
Yeah, Jenny.
I'm saying
Jenny,
nice things about him because he'll get on our case if we're not good to him.
Jenny, that's absolutely true. That's what I want it to be. That's exactly one of the things I want my website to be, is a place, a repository, just like you said. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing if Adam can click to enter. Oh, there he is. Okay, Adam, I see you. And our third and final guest, Adam Thomas, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me, Adam?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Beautiful. I'm popping out there. What's up, everybody? Sorry about that. Jake, there were two different links. I couldn't figure it out. But anyway, you keep going.
Well, we were just kind of visiting, and while we waited for you, but basically what I like to do on this sort of free form format is we were just talking about Jeff's new website, in his latest ventures, and how it's kind of going to be a cool place for all of us to put links and kind of promote stories of our new discoveries and things like that. So what I would like to do is, I think everyone who watches this podcast knows me. They know Jeff, and they're familiar with Zee. And most of them have seen your episode at this point, because it's now a wildly popular one on YouTube. So
I watched it again yesterday.
Zee, thank you. And I wanted to say hi. I just contacted Zee the other day, so it's great to put the face to you guys. And Jeff, great to meet you too. I actually met Jake on your show, and I'm sure Jake's going to ask me to talk about that.
I was just perfect segue. That's exactly my next question, because I was going to tell you, Jeff, this is how Adam kind of fell into, this whole decryption thing that he and his father have been doing along with me and several others now. And so I even the guys that weren't able to make the show tonight, Jayson and Will, and John, a couple of other people. I want to think, and Jeff, you are a big part of this, whether you realize it or not. Where what we're doing is really gaining a lot of momentum. And I want to thank all of you for the roles that you're all playing in getting this information out there and kind of setting things straight about what we don't know about history or what we think we know, and recognizing that we need to take a step back and kind of question things. Absolutely. And use the tools available to us, particularly the science of cryptanalysis, because one thing is for sure, one thing that we have all been able to see very plainly is that these encryptions are real. They contain information that reveals a secret history it's our legacy, and we need to bring it out and reveal the truth. So to that end, Adam, I want to, if you would kind of tell the story and share with Jeff how you kind of fell into this by you and your father looking for a Oak Island fixed and started watching his show.
That's exactly what it was, man. And we love the show. We've been watching it for, what is it now, 12 years or whatever. And it just started lagging a little bit, and not to their fault. I mean, they have to do their best to hide some of their finds and to put it together, string it into a show that makes sense. And we just wanted to see what other researchers were doing to push this forward. And I caught up with your podcast, Jeff, and I saw it was actually the one where Jake was on there, and he was showing what a transposition cipher is. And I was like, what is this? But I'm a math teacher. I teach I teach at a high school, and I'm like, this is very mathematical. There's something going on here, and I want to learn as much as I can about it. So I dove in and just became mesmerized. Everything that Jake has contended is absolutely 100% true. And then I started learning more about like Zee's work and John's work, and I watched every one of Jake's episodes. I've watched every one of yours. I haven't caught the latest one, but just awesome stuff. And I reached out to Jake when we did some transposition tables that started to rotate in a specific manner, and they were revealing messages at an alarming rate. And I said, I have to show him what's going on here. This is mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, and I'll never forget getting that message too. It's one of those things that I'll always remember. I get and you guys know how this goes. I get a lot of people reaching out. Oh, hey, what do you know about this? Or but all of a sudden here was someone who said, "Hey, listen, I'm a fan of your work, and my father and I have been doing transposition tables, and I really need to show you what we found." He said, "It's really astounding." And then so we met up, and I did it through a StreamYard like this, and we started talking. He started showing me this stuff. And my jaw hit the floor, because what you and I said this in the episode where I interviewed you, what you and your father have done is taken what I've done and taken it to a whole new level. And so this is exactly what I was hoping would happen with my information, why I made it open source. A lot of people who do this kind of stuff, they try to keep their methodologies secret so no one steals their information, or I don't know what.
Before they can do their books. That's what they're doing for.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, but
have to forgive them for something.
For some of that, but what I'm talking about is people like back in the day that were doing more pseudo cryptography.
True.
I'm talking about like the Ignatius Donnellys and that sort. But as far as people who are now kind of participating in this with us. They've all made some very specific discoveries that are specific to what they themselves are doing right now. And as soon as their books are out, they're going to be on the show and watching my face drop again. But what Adam and his dad did, it happened exactly the way I was kind of hoping it would in my mind, as I was kind of trying to put this podcast together or get this information out, was that if someone made a discovery and then shared it with me, that it would take what I'm doing and allow me to raise it to another level, which is exactly what it's done. And Adam and I have been talking a lot here behind the scenes, and he knows the project I'm working on. And Adam, I just finally finished the last table. So,
are you able to say how many it went?
10.
It was 10.
10 before it repeats on all.
What a tease. Come on. That was just a great tease right there.
Well,
what are we going to get? What is this all going to be revealed to us?
Well, it's probably going to be another 6 months before I finish the book, Jeff.
All right.
So just like Z was
So
saying,
don't tell me, because I had to keep those other secrets and it was difficult. And I did keep them.
you did keep them, and that's just it. It's like, there are a handful of people that I keep close and I share information with because I know it's going to benefit their work as well. So, when I made a couple of these discoveries, particularly about Sir Walter Raleigh, and that was just yet another pseudonym. The first thing I did was I shared it with Z and Will and Jason and John, and then by the time I met Adam, my second book was already out, so the information was out there. But I knew that it would, if they started seeing these strange messages that don't make any sense, if all of a sudden they have a context to recognize, oh, wait, these guys were brothers, really, and they have that information. Suddenly, everything just kind of clicks, and the pieces fall into place. So, Adam, by reaching out to me, has allowed me to, take what I've done and then also take it up to the level that they've done it. And I'll say this much, Jeff. It uncovered some more information about our favorite island in the Northern Atlantic that I'm going to be sharing with our friends.
That's great. That's great.
It's jaw-dropping information, but and like everything else with this work, and Adam will, I'm sure, and Z will agree to this, that a lot of times we see these messages and I call them disbelievable because it's so easy to just disbelieve and say, oh, no, that can't be true.
Could be.
Right. Could possibly be true.
Good point, yeah.
And so I like to use that term for a lot of this information. So, and that's why I don't make, a lot of public announcements about my discoveries until I have all the corroborating evidence and everything like that.
Yeah, and we all appreciate that too, because we know that you're going to be doing that. So that's why, we can rely on your information that you're putting out.
Thanks, Jeff.
I got Jake. I got a question for Jeff. How did you guys connect? Did you reach out to Jeff, or did Jeff see you?
Was it through John? I don't know.
It was through. At that time you were still working with John, but Chris
John
Dona
was co-hosting, wasn't he?
Chris Dona
and I, had just done a war room together on Oak Island, or for Oak Island, because it was during COVID, so I was remote. But he had been a guest on your show before, and he said, "Oh, well, you know what? Jeff wants to know about what we've been looking at." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm happy to do that." And so, Jeff, you've been over the years gracious to, just whatever new stuff I'm working on, and as crazy as it sounds, you have me on there and with an open mind, and allow me to share that information out. So that's how that happened.
Actually, with Chris, it was Chris and I were talking, and I wanted to have him on. Unfortunately, as things turned out, that never got to happen. But Chris, and that's how I found out about you, through Chris.
Right.
And so then we reached out and worked that way. And so, having you on, I mean, and that's kind of, I've said this before, it's kind of how I do my research, is by talking to smart people like you three, and that's because I can learn so much more. And I've always thought, well, let me, if I'm learning, maybe the people that are watching my channel would like to learn as well. So that's why, and so that's why I bring.
You've learned a lot in the last few years. I mean, it's an extreme difference from when you started.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
The people you've had on.
I feel like I've learned more in the last 3 or 4 years than I did the rest of my life.
Absolutely, that's 100% for me too. Yeah, I really have, in all ways, not just the technical stuff that you all talk about, but also just being a podcaster and and doing that kind of stuff. It's come a long ways in the last, gosh, we're coming around, this is our 5th year now. So
5th year, yeah.
Wow, I know that's something, but no, then that's been the beauty, quite honestly, of it all. One of the greatest things, besides learning the history and all these different things that you guys bring to the table, the mathematics and the ciphers and all that, looking at a painting or a map and being able to pick out all these clues out of it just blows my mind. That how you guys do that. But I'm also learning so much more about history. And to me, that's so much of a treasure as well. The things that you bring, and quite honestly, all of you, it's like, you really put yourself, you talked about it earlier, Jake, about putting yourself out there and sharing that information. You're going to get some shots at you, for sure. And you have a lot, but I mean, it gets other like-minded people talking with you in the same respect, and then you go from there, and it just explodes, right? I mean,
Yeah, well said. And same thing with Z said. Well said. And what I was going to say is that, and people talk about, and it sounds kind of smarmy or cheesy, but the relationships along with the history is the treasure, but the relationships you form
yes,
as we go along this journey, we all start interconnecting and talking about all of our like-minded ideas and things like that, and even the ones that are different from one another. Suddenly, that's the treasure.
absolutely,
All of you people. And looking at some of the comments here, Oaken has a question. He says, talking of OI, Jake, do you know if Adam and his dad have been in contact with the Fellowship, as it's amazing how their operations have moved north to the top of the swamp area?
Oh, AO. Awesome, man.
Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah, I can. No, I am. So first of all, my dad is not here. Obviously, you don't see him. My dad was going to try to pop on. He's super old school. If you've seen my my podcast with Jake the other night, but we're getting slammed with a storm, so he wanted to stay home. He's getting about 10 to 12 up by where he is. So he says, "Thank you so much, Jake. He can't wait to pop on with you."
Yeah, I really can't wait to meet him.
We are on an absolute monster, blockbuster, game-changing find in one of the plays that we are holding back until we have everything it's situated that you cannot deny what exactly is happening. So to answer your question, AO, no, we haven't reached out to them yet. We have the ability to do so, but I want all the information in line. I don't want to miss a thing.
very smart.
Very smart. Yeah. Great question, AO. And the thing is that this is what I'm most excited about is that, the idea that you and your dad are finally proving to the world, and that this is going to be proved to the world. I know it. I've seen what you've done. You've shown me some of your decryptions, not in the podcast, but just privately. And this is history changing. This is finally proof that, yes, the first folio does contain cipher messages from Sir Francis Bacon, and you guys are proving it. And I'm just super excited for that.
Wow, I am too. I can't wait.
Yep.
It's going to be good stuff.
Well, it's funny how it all changes, and your opinions. If you can be an open-minded person, which some people can't, and they'll never be able to accept it. But if you can leave your mind open to other possibilities, then these opportunities appear. I mean, I've told the story to some people, but I grew up with my mom was a Shakespeare scholar, and I got dragged to every Shakespeare production in 3 states in Canada and England, whether I wanted to go or not at the time. And, to her dying day, she would say, Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare. But I had started questioning that. So I started watching different YouTube channels who were going in different directions and trying to see whether or not they could solve the mystery. And then I came across Peter Amundsen, and then I came across Jake at your show. Actually, I met him before that. And so once he told me what to do and his book, then I tried it and it worked. And I haven't had any time since.
Sorry, Z. But
that is.
But it's true. That's how it works. It's just how it works. Let's see. Just looking at some.
Jake, the one thing I don't know, Z, how did you guys get linked up?
Oh yeah, go ahead and tell the story, Z. Do you remember?
I don't actually remember. I know that I read your book. Maybe I commented or something on I watched every one of your podcasts from the beginning too.
Well, thank you.
But I had read, my grandmother actually read us the Reader's Digest article on Oak Island when we were kids, my brother and I. He doesn't remember it at all, but I did. And it just stuck in my mind. And every time anything would come on, Leonard Nimoy went on television with the Oak Island thing and on In Search of, or whatever that was.
Yep.
And I've always had my ear to the ground for it. And then when I heard that the History Channel was doing a show, I was just like blown away. I was like, and the show drives me crazy, but it drives everybody crazy.
It drives all of us crazy, yes.
That's why
but I do like it a lot better now that I have you and Tom taking things apart. I mean,
yeah,
that is a really good asset to have somebody who is doing the research behind the scenes to see what's going on. And I love your speculating, actually.
Well, and that's where, you were talking about that earlier, where I think, Adam, you were mentioning about the fact that you guys can't speculate. We can. Tom and I, well, it's mostly me, but Tom and I can get away with speculating. But when it comes to your work, you can't. And I'm glad that you're going to every step you need to take along the way to get to before you present, like that. That's exactly right. But we can speculate, and sometimes you have to, because obviously,
They're not telling us everything.
No, exactly, right. I mean, we just don't get all that information we'd love to have.
But you see, I like, because you can. I like when you guys do it, because a lot of times what you're doing, we call it speculation, but other times what you're really doing are making inferences. You're taking details and using logic to come to a conclusion.
Right.
And sometimes it involves, hey, what if, or some kind of speculation like that. But for the most part, you just look at what data we have available and the details, and you guys logically put them together and try to, let's put this into a narrative. How can we understand this? I love the way you guys do that. But like you said, with us, we really can't do it.
Well, sometimes things will catch your eye.
Absolutely.
And that's always, that's how I actually met you, Jake, was because I kept seeing paintings and saying, this has to have something to do.
Yeah. And I remember you
and you decided to tell me how to do it because I could catch the things in the paintings.
Yeah, you said this shouldn't be there. I said, you're absolutely right. Here's what you do next. And you've just been taking it right. James, very good point. A lot of reasons why people will hide their methodologies is that they don't have any. And they're just cherry picking their evidence. Absolutely true. Good.
There are quite a few people who have joined up recently to Jake too. So sometimes you might have to explain a little bit to get them on board.
Yeah, I'm looking, and we have new people in the chat, and we just for live viewers, we just reached the magic number of 33, gang. How's that? How's that for fun?
Jake,
I'm twice 33.
I didn't hear the beginning because I was lost backstream, but happy birthday to you tomorrow. Did we talk about that yet?
Oh, thanks, bud. Yeah,
happy birthday, Jake.
Thanks, guys. That's why I like.
Isn't that what we're? Yeah.
Yes, I said bring your favorite libations. And so
happy birthday, buddy.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm gonna be 56 years young tomorrow. So and it's been quite a ride. But that's one of the things that inspired the very first Bacon Birthday Bash was I knew that Jayson Mercer had already been on my show, and I knew that his birthday was on the 25th, or I just confirmed with him that it was the 25th. Mine's the 20th. Bacon's is the 22nd, and you have, of course, now we know Walter Raleigh. His birthday's also the 22nd, even though they have always believed that he was born in a different year, even though they don't know for sure which year. So
yeah, some places actually had the correct year, and some places had the incorrect year before you figured it out. I did find some sources that had the correct year.
And that means that there are, some records
Somebody
out
in the know.
100%. And, I've said it before, but I think that now that we're on the track and we've able to, seek out these clues and these hidden little puzzles, and we're starting to crack them all. It's so obvious to me that we're not the first to do that, and that I'm not the first to do what I've done. Reading the works and being an English teacher helps because, I've read the works of Edgar Allan Poe, I've read the works of Mark Twain, and as well as Alexander Dumas. These were people who were in the know because the themes of the lives of Bacon and Raleigh appear in their works. I mean,
Yeah, the Dumas stuff is like dead on.
it's all right there. Monte Cristo to the Man in the Iron Mask.
Mm.
It's all right there. Along with, well, look at, you have Edgar Allan Poe, of course, writing The Gold Bug,
Yep.
his short story about decrypting a cipher. And he's the writer of the poem El Dorado, of all things. And who was a famous person who was in search of El Dorado. Yeah, our friend Walter. So, these guys all knew what I know, but they found ways to just kind of communicate that on the down low. Just looking at more.
So, you got anything great planned for tomorrow, or
as far as birthday plans? No, I think we're going to make some chicken wings.
Chicken wings.
Yeah, I think that's what we have planned.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope, not at all.
Yep. Yeah, Linda, that's just it. It's like you have all these great people who are chiming in on a show that we're all fans of, and it just adds so much to the narrative.
That's why I got on Facebook, because of Oak Island. I was never on Facebook. I had no interest in being on Facebook, and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, but I need more information. Yeah. And people on Facebook had it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's mostly true.
Yeah.
Well, it's not all true, but you have to check out any information you get in life. Yeah. You can't always take it.
I just hate getting those. Sorry, I'll cut you off there, but I just hate seeing those, whether they be YouTube videos or clips on Facebook where, they found it, and it's showing Rick, and he's got a treasure behind him. It's like, oh my gosh,
it's really irritating.
It is so irritating because those, and a lot of people, and they get lots of views for that crap too. Mm-hmm. So it's like, anyway, but
that's just it though. Production, they're very good at telling a narrative and keeping the interest high, even when they're not finding a whole lot except for some scientific finds, which I find to be just as interesting.
Yeah, I love seeing the wood.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Adam? Do you like seeing the wood?
I can't take the core samples anymore. It's like, we're gonna go check out some more core samples again.
Well,
I actually wanted to go ahead, Jake.
Oh no, you go ahead, Adam.
No, I actually wanted to pick Jeff's brain because I watched the other day. I think you had Seth on, and you were talking about the Restall spiral shaft.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a potential explanation for why you're drilling down, you're hitting a tunnel, and then it vanishes, and then you move a little, and that would make total sense. That spiral. Just talk about that if you could.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what the Restalls had thought, because when they were doing some of their drilling, that's exactly what was happening to them. They were hitting a level, and then like maybe a void space or easy digging, call it, and then another hit wood again, and then down a ways it would go through in situ, and then it would hit it again. So they surmised by that they were some sort of spiral. Then as weird as that might seem, it, like Tom has said, that a spiral would make it easier to move stuff higher and lower than than any other types of means. But so when they had that episode recently where they did hit it, it's like, but you have to hand back to Prometheus, because that sometimes, quite often actually, they don't always use the scenes that are meant to go together, to make.
And they never follow through on something that doesn't mean anything.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But so in that particular episode, it did get a little sketchy as to, are these mismatched scenes, and it doesn't match the narrative that Robert Clotworthy is saying, or what? But by listening to it, it sounded like there was different levels, and either you're hitting these tunnels, like Tom had explained, in the bottom of these vertical shafts, there were some horizontal tunnels made towards this money pit area. So either you're hitting some of those or a spiral. I don't know. It's
and it's funny. It's kind of what I was hinting at earlier, Jeff, when you said the way that they was something taken out of sequence here, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I was talking about. How they create a narrative sometimes by moving information in time as well. Yep. And so like I said, I'm not revealing anything that people don't already know, But from my experience and observations, that's something that frequently happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's and I've said this before, and you've got the couple different, you got two sides to it. You've got the guys on the island that are trying to do an actual investigation. They're trying their best, with the limited money that they have to spread around the island. They're trying their best to get answers. And then you've got and figure it all out, the who, what, why, where, when, and how. And then you've got the production company, and their job is to sell a TV show, put together so many episodes that they've agreed to with History Channel to sell them. That's our job. And if it's pushing a particular narrative, if that narrative is selling, then they're going to push that narrative. So it may shift from Templars to Vikings to whatever as they go along. That may not exactly be the views of the guys on the island. They may have a different opinion about all that. So
100%. And well, it's like when you look at the popularity of the new TV show about Vikings that is now like very, very popular.
Yep.
Suddenly we have that entering the narrative.
Yep.
And again, the thing I always tell people on the side who ask me about it, I say, well, the biggest word in the name of their company is Prometheus Entertainment.
Exactly.
It's an entertainment company, gang.
Exactly.
So,
well, they're doing all right because they're the #1 show,
100%.
Yep.
So,
and that's why they keep doing what they do. And there are, we could go on and on about how certain things that they're doing throughout the episode you wish they wouldn't do, but it's selling, so, but I think this year, I'm really excited about this year.
Yeah, I think people are going to like how things turn out this year.
Well, I liked the originally that the relationship between the two brothers. That's what really hooked me to the show, even though they weren't finding gold.
Yeah.
It was the story, and that's why we've got a story with Bacon and Raleigh that is unbelievable.
Yes.
And
I know, isn't that crazy?
it's just fantastic.
It
And
really
we've got all of the Shakespeare things happening in their lives.
How cool would it be too if two brothers discover it, and we're discussing two twin brothers? It's just, I think these are the right guys on the island currently, and I don't know what other things they're employing.
Yep.
But it has to be solved, and hopefully with the help of all of us, Jake, your work, everybody who's doing what they're doing, this thing gets figured out sooner than later.
Well, they
Jake
have
and I always say this
now that they never had before. We
Yeah.
have cryptology that was never applied before.
Very true.
So, you have to have the right tools. Like the two old guys on the island, Dan Blankenship and Fred Nolan, they were at each other's throats for 90 some years or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And but the rest alls, I mean, can you imagine living in one of those shacks in the winter?
Oh my gosh, that would have been awful.
And they didn't have the road. They still had to pull everything in by boat.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've had a lot of adventurers there. And it's nice that Rick wants the story. I really appreciate that he wants the story. And now,
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that the thing that I think Prometheus does a very good job on is just allowing their personalities to come through on the show, because when the way you see all of those folks on the TV show, that's how they are in real life. They are just genuinely really great people. So quick question, Jan posted for us, Adam, do you ever find yourself under fire from the Shakespeare scholars who think you're steering people in the wrong direction and that only the things written are true Shakespeare? A question that I get asked a lot.
Yeah, I haven't been under fire as bad as I saw Jake a couple times, and you talked about it on one of your shows. What's going to happen is kind of swings back to AO's question. I want to make sure everything is just ironclad. It's as tight as humanly possible. There's no way that any scholar or somebody who has any bit of wit or intelligence can look at it and say that's false. And Jake has seen the work. I have a couple new ones I got to share with you, Jake, but it just reiterates the fact that this is absolutely real. Mm-hmm. It's a scientific method. We're following a very strict standard operating procedure, and the messages appear in the same exact location. Yeah. You can't make that up. So we've unlocked how they've encrypted, and we now know how to decrypt, and we think it's leading to very special places. So I hope that answers your question, Jan, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, and
Well,
Jan, Z, she also says that question is also for us too. So go ahead.
okay, well, I wrote something earlier, and I didn't write it well. But the issue with researchers who don't use cryptographic methods and rely on either the literary or the primary source documents exclusively, they're not able to recognize these aliases and masks because our group of guys were spies and they knew how to create the documents, the letters, the diaries, the books, and other primary sources to support their cover characters. And so that's why it's taking 400 years.
Yes. Well,
that is it, precisely why it's taking 400 years.
Exactly. And it's funny. I mentioned this story once before, I think to you guys individually, but I don't know if I really talked about it on my podcast at all. But one of the Oak Island researchers posed the question to me about some of the things about Samuel Champlain's life, where there was one report where he married a Native American woman, supposedly, and things of that nature. And they asked, well, what about that? I said, how do we know that information? And this individual said, well, from Champlain's writings. I said, right. His diaries. Bacon, as an alien, was writing about his fictitious life.
Frequently.
So, all the time. He was constantly perpetrating a fraud against himself. And so, what reason do we have to believe anything he said about his life as Samuel de Champlain? Now, the historical references to other people, the descriptions of landscape, flora, fauna, all of those things are highly scientifically accurate. The drawings that Champlain drew were the work of a master artist. So where did he go to school for that? Well, no one knows. There's no record of it anywhere. So I said, it's very easy for a spy to write something false about himself. And
then they were sending letters back and forth to their aliases.
Yeah. They were sending letters to themselves under different names. These are the kinds of things that they were doing to add legitimacy to these masks and aliases.
That's crazy.
It really is.
But the problem is actually getting somebody to look at the cryptology that you have provided them, both of you and Adam. I mean, that's what happened with the Francis Bacon Society. They won't even consider looking at it.
Yeah.
And if you don't leave yourself open-minded, you're never going to get anywhere with that.
Exactly.
Well, the problem I have, and I've expressed this frustration before, and it is a real frustration for me. I mean, I think maybe a better person would just kind of shrug and say, oh well, so they don't get it. But, at the end of the day, it's much easier to just dismiss everything we've done and dismiss me as either being, I always use the term batshit crazy, forgive the naughtiness, people, or self-delusionally stupid, or I'm a liar and a fraud. Which one of those?
Just trying to sell books.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to read about Francis Bacon.
I mean, are they that set on their own ideals of all of this that they will not even listen? I mean, come on.
They will not even. They won't even open his book.
Yeah.
And so
if they got it for free, they wouldn't open it.
Z, we got it for free. I sent it to them.
There you go. See?
And they said, "Oh yeah, we can't wait to get it." They were all excited, and then they opened it and saw what it said, and silence. But at the end of the day, that's what I tell people, because it's easier to assume one of those things than it is to actually do the work it takes to understand what we do. Whereas someone like you, Jeff, you're always open-minded, and you allow us to explain ourselves. And as you say, you feel like every time you learn from it, you come away saying, wow, that's really something.
Yep.
And like Adam said, and like Will Russell before, and Zee before that, people will look at it and have an open mind and say, well, I'm going to take a look at this. And next thing you know, they all do the same thing. It's what Adam just did. oh my God, you're right. And and so for me, that's been the most gratifying, and that's really the only gratification I really need, is that other people have an open enough mind to just try it out themselves, use scientific method and discover that, oh my gosh, all of this information really is out there. So
it's real, buddy. It's 100% real, and you've unlocked something that is massive. This special team that you're putting together, and Z, that's kind of the concept too of the illumination. Like the student has to want to gain the knowledge and illuminate, and if they're blocking themselves from it, they're never going to receive it.
I think that's why they went in so many different directions and repeated it all over the place.
Everything,
it wasn't just in one place. Like what you're doing is different than what Jayson's doing.
Mm-hmm.
What's different than I'm doing, that's different than Jake's doing, because he's crazy and he wants to do what he wants to do. But that's it. All these other people doing it different ways are coming up with the same answers.
Yeah, that's what blows my mind. Yeah, as someone who doesn't look into it and dig into it and do the research that you guys do, it really blows my mind, because you guys have fit all this together. I don't know how, but other than listening to the different pieces of information that you guys give to us, but that's what blows my mind, is it all says basically the same thing.
And that's the backbone of the scientific method now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
Repeatability.
The scientific method created by Sir Francis Bacon. So
Jeff, you had been doing your podcast for a while, and then was it like, did Jake come on and he showed you some transpositions, and opened it up to, this might be a way that this thing is solved, that this Oak Island thing is solved?
I think so. Absolutely. I mean, I think it was, I know I had you on earlier on, and we were talking about your different ciphers and whatnot, and you showed that one, the one picture you had as a thumbnail up tonight before the show started.
Great.
Of that tower thing, that one, I was like, you had a show on that. I was like, what the heck? Oh, it just blew my mind.
The Invisible College, that one.
Yeah. And then the 1611 map, going through that and showing all the stuff on there. I mean, it just in my mind, and I know that doesn't go for everyone watching, but in my mind, it just adds up. It's all there. If you just open your mind to accept some of this stuff, and it makes sense. I mean, I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I don't think you really even have to accept it. You just have to figure out what they did to come up with their answer.
Yep.
Right.
And once you do that, it's very simple.
Yep.
And like I tell everyone, it doesn't take, a great deal of intellect. It's just time, time and focused attention. And anyone can do what we do. And to Zee's credit, the way that we all kind of come at it from slightly different angles, but we're all using, kind of rigorous cryptanalysis methods, right? Cryptology. And so as long as we follow, like Adam said, the standard operating procedures that follow the rules and not bend them just to find information that we want to find, the information just comes out. And that's really at the heart of what we do, is just following the clues where they lead us. And for me, one of the first things I did, of course, I was a member of the Sir Francis Bacon Society, and I reached out, and at first they were very excited. But these are people who are, for lack of a better term, worshipers of Sir Francis Bacon and everything he encompasses. And, of course, his big sacred idea was truth, pursuing the truth, and just following.
But he lied all the way to get that.
Meanwhile, he was lying his face off. He just took my punchline. But at the same time, here are people who are supposed to value the truth and really don't want to look at it and see it, because it flies in the face of their favorite theory, which is unfortunate.
It doesn't make sense to me.
But at the end of the day, a lot of those people have actually set up a cottage industry based upon that favorite theory, and so it's here it is, life's work.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I walk up and I'm like, hey guys, guess what?
You're wrong.
No, I didn't expect I would be making a lot of friends with that, but
I was kind of glad that Wah died before he found out what you found out.
Yeah,
Because he did. He spent, I mean, he had to fight all those scholars, and it's in there the way he says, but
yeah,
what he didn't know was the mask alias
yeah.
parts.
And you know, that's just it. I was always such a big fan of his work. And even though I didn't, you know, agree with the theory, um, I really admired what he was doing. And I also admired the way he stood up to all those critics, because you talk about someone catching some heat. That guy had a large following, and he was very, very well known, and that made him an even bigger target. So, so yeah, but I agree, Z, because you know, I think of, you know, someone like Peter Dawkins, who is the preeminent Francis Bacon scholar and expert. I'm sure he's forgotten more about Sir Francis Bacon than I will ever know. And that's how knowledgeable he is. And yet there's just that one blind spot, right?
Correct.
And so at the end of the day, it doesn't, I don't depreciate or try to take away from anything that he's accomplished, because, you know, they were
Peter Robinson, same thing. I mean,
Peter and
he opened the door.
And Mr. Dawkins, I mean, I was standing on their shoulders when I did what I did, right? If they hadn't accomplished everything they had accomplished, I wouldn't have known where to start. And so I always tip my hat to them and give them credit, even though, you know,
they didn't get the answer that really was there.
Right.
Well, even people like Alan Green, are you familiar with the Bard Code? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, when he first started, he was gung ho in one direction. And as things went, Bacon kept showing up.
Yep.
And he couldn't really figure out why. And then DeVere was showing up too. And by the time he did a big thing on the King James Bible? Yeah. He did a 2-part series on the King James Bible. They were all in there. D, Bacon. And he like really said, you know, I think it's this, but there's definitely something going on with these other guys.
Mm-hmm. And we now know that, I mean, that is
now why
the fraternity of the Rosy Cross, right? And the big thing is why. And somebody else asked that question. Barbara's asking, the most interesting thing is just the sheer IQ and creativity that Bacon had. Science versus creativity and spirituality, right brain, left brain, balance, amazing. Wonderful comment, Barbara.
Astronomy, education, poetry. I mean, it just, every single thing you could possibly get interested in, he was interested in it.
Yeah. And you know, the funny thing is that you look at all of that, and you know, I was saying this to Adam the other day. One thing is for sure. I mean, I know I could create a transposition cipher, right? That worked once, but to have it cycle through and transpose into you know, 6 or 7 or 10 other tables and still produce new messages. He was the greatest mind I think that ever lived.
Ever.
That's the stuff I can't fathom right there. It just
no, and just when Jake and I thought we like he tells me to flip it, and if you watched my show on Jake's, like I actually had to physically flip it, so he knew where every letter was going to be. It's just I don't know.
And you know,
well, the Enochian tables, that's what you have to do in order to get the answers from that.
But see, it's a permutation and a combination going on at the same time. I've studied this with my math department. I got some really good minds in my school, and there's a lot going on here. It's remarkable.
That's cool.
As Jake said, he's just so intelligent, this guy.
They must not want you in the lunchroom. I know my husband's really tired of hearing it.
Yeah, there's 2 of them love it, particularly one of the ladies, Trish. She's just awesome. I'm always talking to her about it. But
well, my one of my good friends, former colleagues before I retired, his name's Jeff, and he's a chess master. And you know, I was talking to him about what I had done. He goes, "Yeah, that's possible." It's just the way he talks, right? but and then he would start kind of questioning, the methodologies and, well, how do you know this? How do you know? And when I start explaining to him, the standardized procedures, how it works, he says, yeah, that's possible. He says, we're talking about somebody who's really, really smart, with his accent. And I said, yeah, we are.
Really
As far as the rest of my colleagues go, Z, that they would kind of roll their eyes when I would walk in the lunchroom, just so. It's like, oh God, here we go again.
And that's what my
especially
wife
the
does now.
English department.
Yeah, right, Adam. Yeah.
Heather's like, oh gosh, here we go. We're gonna decrypt it. I have to share this with you. I put it up. I had a I have a little thing I can share with you guys.
Oh, do it.
I look over the other day. Actually, I'm gonna have to pop it up. Can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got to present this picture for you guys for 1 sec.
Go ahead, take it over.
All right, I'm gonna share this screen. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Nope.
Not yet.
Click on share screen, and then you have to click on the picture of the screen on the screen, and then once it's highlighted,
down at the bottom, at
the bottom.
Yeah, I got
Who says present?
Yeah.
There it is. I'll throw it up.
All right. So I look over the other day. You have no idea how far reaching this becomes. I look over my daughter. Can you guys see that picture?
Yeah.
She's laying on the couch, and I'm like, honey, she got her clipboard and everything. I'm like, honey, what are you doing? She goes, I'm decrypting a passage. Jake, look at this. It's just so funny. Like, she watches what I do. And
wow, that's amazing.
So she put
Wow.
the letters great. And numbers. I couldn't see what she was.
It's just the greatest, man. What's that?
That's awesome.
Was she putting numbers?
Yeah, she just started putting like little numbers, letters, little pictures, and I was like, "What are you doing, sweetheart?" She goes, "I'm decrypting a passage."
That's awesome.
That is.
So the next generation trying to figure this out.
Yep.
That's what we need.
That's so cool.
Well, that's probably what, like, the math departments and the math people would not really be interested in reading Shakespeare most of the time, and the literary English people are not interested in doing the math required for this, and that kept them apart rather than get somebody who was like Bacon who could do all of that.
Right.
That's a great point, Z. If I
Yeah, it's so true. And well,
if I can interject there, because it's so interdisciplinary. Jake being a teacher and me being a teacher can really respect that whole interdisciplinary concept. I'm doing a decryption right now in a play, and his learnedness in just the medical field in general. He uses the 4 humors and blood and phlegm and bile, and he represents colors, and you have to understand how to fix the medical thing that's wrong with the character to be able to do the decryption. It's so deep. Just his knowledge base is everywhere.
Well,
it's
doctors
crazy.
think that Shakespeare must have been a doctor. Lawyers think it must have been a lawyer. Gardeners think it must have been a gardener. Like they ask people, and they immediately think that it's whatever they know how to do.
What if they're all right?
The person was. Well, the problem is they all were right.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's a problem on Oak Island too.
It's everything.
I mean, of all those theories, I think several of them all fit right into each other.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, especially when you look at the fact that it could be over generations of time. Different people were involved at different times, so several of them could be right. And that's something that John Edwards and I have talked about. It's like, y'all get together. You could have had this solved, 10 years ago.
Yeah, John and I have had that conversation.
Yeah.
And, my latest decryption actually has, I think, Bacon's piece of that puzzle of how it all fits together. And I think that that Scott Clark has it right too. That this was a continuation of a tradition that wherein he was in the know. Okay, and so in fact, the map that he identified, that little I think that map is probably contains other encryptions as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't studied it yet.
Well, I've been studying this.
There's only so much time.
Exactly.
I got to find time.
Jake's on a monster right now. You got to let him go for a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we got to let him settle that in.
This one is probably, looking back, I missed so much of what was actually contained within the plaque of Shakespeare's funerary monument. there's so much more there that I haven't even published.
Wow.
Adam has found or identified a couple of other permutations of one of the tables in my book that I didn't figure out until much later. And he found it too. So there's so much more there, but this one is so much larger than when I decrypted the plaque. I found a total of 6 different cipher messages, complete messages. And as it turns out, there's even more than that. But what I'm working on now has 30. Yeah. And so I'm still, I just finished the last transmit, and now I'm going to go back and start the action. I've only done 2 layers of full decryptions in each of the permutations in each section of this
and
thing.
we haven't gotten to the alchemists, or like there's whole huge areas that they were involved in,
and we
haven't had time to touch. That's why we need other people getting into this.
Yeah, well, that's just it. It's like that's why I started out the show, thanking you guys, because the more people we get interested and get on board, and the more more hands we have on deck, the lighter the labor is going to get. And so I'm focused on this one group of pieces of material. We have John Edwards and Will Russell have been working. A large part of their information comes from the 1611 King James Bible, and along with other sources, including the sonnets, which I also touched upon in my last book. And Adam and you and your dad tackling the first folio, which I think is the Mount Everest of what we do.
I think so too.
I think what you guys are doing right now is going to turn out to be the most important part of all of this by the time you're done.
I appreciate you thinking that, Jake. There's a lot of moving parts, and you've been pivotal in all that too. But I appreciate the words.
But it's not just I don't say things just to hear the dulcet tones of my voice. I really believe that. I mean it. And Zee, all of a sudden it's like I want all of the viewers of the podcast to hear this, because I have Jayson on frequently, William's been on, Adam's been on once now, John Edwards, and Zee, I've had you on once. But what people don't know is that Zee is one of the biggest contributors in the Ghosts of Bacon group, Facebook group. She's frequently reaching out to other researchers behind the scenes, and she all of a sudden will find a new discovery and message me and say, "What do you think of this?" And I'm just like, "Oh my God, here we go." It's so Zee. I mean, I know that I don't know if you have a book.
I have no book. I will not write a book. I refuse to write a book. That's why I'm more than happy to share what I know with anybody who wants to know it.
I got a blog on my. I was going to mention this earlier.
You want to throw a few things on there?
You can throw me a couple articles. I'll put them. I'd love to put them up there.
Well, in case you couldn't tell by my face, I already knew the answer to that question before I even asked it, because Zee's told me a million times, "I'm never doing that. I just want to share my info." But that's
I wrote an 800-page book once, and I have not tried to sell it. It's done. It's completed.
Wow.
And I just, it's like, that's not really what I want to do with my life.
Oh yeah, it's because it's a ton of work. It really is. But that's just what I wanted to say about Zee, is that the amount of work that you've been doing, that people don't even know about, is also huge, and everybody's making a contribution. And I just really appreciate all the work everyone's doing.
You've said before, Jake, and I agree with it, and I've said it on my show too, is that, and a lot of the folks that are watching your, show here are in, watch mine as well. But we have the smartest people that watch. We really do. They contribute so much to my podcast. The information that everybody imparts, I don't know. It's a wonderful thing. So
it blows you away, doesn't it?
It does. But that adds to what Jake was just saying. We're getting so much more help and work into this, because people are coming up with ideas and things that I had I wasn't even thinking about. It was remote. So
absolutely,
truly.
Well, what a great point, Jeff. Yeah, I feel the same way. couple more. And speaking of which, I want to go to the comments because the people who watch this podcast, they ask the best questions and really. Oh, this one's for you, Z. Linda wants to know, what do you think your mother would say if she could see all this research? Do you think she would ever be a believer?
My mother was a very stubborn person. And on her deathbed, I pretty much asked her, who wrote Shakespeare, Mom? And she said, Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare. She did her dissertation on Shakespeare, on As You Like It. And yeah, she was indoctrinated. And, you know, frankly, a lot of people like that would have lost their PhDs had they said somebody else wrote it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Their schools would have kicked them out. And she wasn't actually teaching. She guest lectured an honors class in Shakespeare at Penn, University of Pennsylvania. But
Wow.
in general, you know, she didn't really have anything to lose by doing it, but it was just like hard to do after, you know, years and years of being.
Well, people have
that.
to, people have to, you know, be gracious when it comes to people in that position, particularly in academia, where if a lot of times, you know, there's nothing more. And when I use the term political, I don't mean in like our modern political environment sense. I mean, schools, even at the level that Adam and I taught, are very political places. And there are prevailing opinions that, you know, you kind of have to toe the party line at certain moments, even if it goes against what you actually know to be true or believe in. And people have to remember that when it's your livelihood, not a lot of people are willing to, you know, stick their neck out when their livelihood is on the line. And that's just human nature.
That is correct. And that's why, you know, you have all the people in Stratford upon Avon there. That's a multi-million-dollar business having Shakespeare's house there.
Yes, 100%.
And people in that area didn't even care that he died.
And then
it
when
wasn't until like 25 years later that, you know, anybody bothered to go over there and see what was going on.
Right. It's so true. And David's making a great point. You know, even with a website offering the proof, no one wants to go and do due diligence.
Yeah.
And you know, this is something called confirmation bias and disconfirmation bias, right? You know, we tend to blindly believe information we already agree with. And when we find information that runs against it, we, you know, become hypercritical of it and you know, demand more evidence than what you would normally need in order to, you know, be proven incorrect. So
but that's why I think they had the repeatability of everything. I think they understood that.
Well, Bacon actually called it, he had a term for it. You know, what we call cognitive biases today, he called the idols of the mind. And he had them classified. And he described exactly what I'm talking about here today, and I'm calling them cognitive biases because those are you know, modern terms for it. You know, ideas and terms that I used when I would teach critical thinking in my college level class. So
they're in the folio too, buddy. They're all over the place.
Yep.
When a clown or like enters the room or a dullard, you really need to listen. There's a lot of tips.
The fools always know.
How to use your wit. And Jake, hopefully you have me on again. I really want to dive into like how these tables are moving and what the characters actually say, because they give you instructions on how to decrypt. It's remarkable.
Oh, I want to see that. Yeah.
Like you remember the one I did on yours where it equaled 100 and we were like so excited.
Yeah.
It equal 100. The characters right before that actually say, how old was a 5 score? And 5 score
100. Yeah.
Equals 100.
20
a score is 20. So he's telling you when you reach 100, he says the illusion is in the exchange. The illusion is me telling you something without explicitly saying it. In exchange, just like money is, I'm going to change the value and move it to something else. It's exactly what we did in our decryption. They give you instructions.
Well,
Yeah.
Adam, you got into this because of Oak Island. I got into it because of Oak Island too. And Jeff got into it because of Oak Island. And I guess Jake got into it because
Oak Island.
Chris conned you into it.
Well, that was funny. It's like during my first war room, they said, "Well, how did you get into start doing Oak Island research?" I said, I blame Chris Dona, and they all just cracked up laughing. I said, it's his fault because it's one of those rabbit holes that once you get started doing it, you realize very quickly there is something there, and I said right along that, and just what Jeff had mentioned earlier, is that this is multi-generational, that all of these theorists, when people only focus on one theory and say this has got to be the answer, I always say I think that's a piece of the puzzle, because this is something that, and with that last decryption, and I promise Jeff, as soon as I get it packaged up and sent off, I'll be sharing it with you, but it's full of what I call very disbelievable information, but I know it's all right. And so it is what it is. And like I said, I have to package that up and send it off to some friends and see what they think. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that it's still just one piece. It's Bacon and Raleigh, and they're part of the story. And so when I read what they found there and how they found it, and then what they did with it as a result, it's just an amazing story. And the thing is that other people have gotten parts of this puzzle woven into other narratives.
Interesting.
But it all fits together. And so they had it right, but they might have had this piece in the wrong narrative. And so it's really exciting stuff. And
then the two old geezers were moving things around on the island to make things much easier on the other person.
Right.
That did not help matters.
It didn't. And, one of the things that John and I were talking about is seeing if we could, one of the things that I've always wanted to do is find that stone floor where Fred Nolan put all of the carved rocks.
Yeah. What happened to that? That was in one of his rental properties, right?
Yeah. And the thing is that I'm 100% sure that the locations of each of those carved rocks would have been meticulously recorded by Fred Nolan. He would have made sure that he knew exactly.
Yeah.
And there's one carved rock with a very special symbol on it that I'm 100% positive was there at one time. Whether it was moved and destroyed by searchers or picked up and kept for safekeeping by Fred Nolan, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping against hope that location is still recorded on one of his maps. And John and I were talking about hopefully being able to take a look at them.
I think there's a lot of information.
Must have been incredible to look at, and they took up an entire room.
Oh yeah,
the maps that he was working on. And I'm sure he put things incorrectly on there in case anybody got a hold of them. I would not.
He kept everything close to the chest.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And they're the size of a room for sure. I mean, you look at them and you lay them out on the floor and they fill up the whole room. So these were pretty impressive things. What were you going to say?
Hey, Adam, did you end up now that you've got the first folio in hand and you got into it because of the decryption in Oak Island? But now, do you have an interest in really reading the rest of Shakespeare?
There's a lot to do here.
I know.
we now know. Yes. We now know why it's laid out the way it is: comedy, history, tragedy. There's a lot of things to open up and delve into. Jake has done much more on the sonnets, and one of the first times I reached out to Jake, he said, "Do you have anything on Venus Adonis?" And I hadn't at that point. I said, "You'll probably be light years ahead of me on that," but I have a whole bunch on that now. And we branched out into other Shakespeare stuff, but this folio right now is my baby. I mean, I spend the majority of my time in there. My dad currently, right now, as we speak, is at the house decrypting. He's working on something that that
Hi,
we,
Dad.
yeah.
He's probably watching us.
He's gonna love you guys. You're gonna love him. He's an awesome guy. And as Jake said, like we just love doing this together. It's a special thing that we get to share. And
It's awesome.
We have branched out into other things of Shakespeare, but all things considered, this folio is chock full of secrets. So we've primarily spent our time in that.
But it's a treasure hunt in itself, you know, all the things that you find. That's why we do it, because it's like, wow, this is cool. Look what I just found out.
Yes, it is.
What were you saying, Jeff?
And a lot of times I'll call Jake.
Yeah, it's like my phone will ring. I'll see it's Adam. What'd you find?
That's it, man.
Well, I found things besides Shakespeare and Oak Island, because I've been working. I initially was working more on the paintings,
right.
And there's stuff that goes way back, and not in just the paintings, but in other literature in England and Europe. Quite a bit. There's quite a bit out there.
Don Quixote.
Yeah, Raleigh.
Yeah, Raleigh. So one of the, and like I said before, Adam, I'm so glad that the folio is turned into your baby, because it's like, I mean, what you and your dad are doing is going to be history changing, and it's nothing less than that.
Too.
And the biggest thing is maintaining, and this is why I like what you guys are doing so much, because you're kind of doing a lot of the same things that I did in terms of making sure you have credibility, maintaining a standard operating procedure, using a scientific method, accepted methods of cryptology. And what this does is suddenly people can't dispute it. And one of the biggest criticisms that people have leveled, they kind of use a disingenuous argument, and they try to make a statement of, oh, come on, you can't say that Shakespeare wrote the plays or Bacon wrote the plays just so he could leave ciphers in them. This is the greatest literature in the English language, and it is the greatest literature in the English language. And that's why he chose it to place encryptions within it. It's the perfect vessel to last the test of time. And this is what I try to explain to people all the time. What was that, Jeff? Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. That's so true.
Well, when you create something that's that good,
why put it somewhere where it's not going to get seen?
Why put it in something that's not going to last?
That's right.
And so
I went back to the British Museum and looked at their manuscripts that they had, the illuminated manuscripts. Mm-hmm. There are a ton of them done by our guys. A ton of them. All different years.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious once you've seen these like over and over and over again.
Well, if you look at the folio, the folio itself and the King James 1611 are two of the most widely published books on the face of the planet ever. Yes. So that's done intentionally for.
And Don Quixote in Europe, we don't think of it as much here, but in Europe, that is like one of the top books of all time. In their thinking, people quote it as much as we quote Shakespeare.
Absolutely,
I quote Shakespeare because I got stuck with it. But no, I mean, my father was born in Puerto Rico, and when he got much older, he asked me, he's like, I think I would really like to read Don Quixote in Spanish, and I was always going to flea markets and stuff like that. So I picked him up a copy of it. It's on my shelf.
Oh, nice.
Over here, I can't read the Spanish. I can read sort of, but it was that important to him, and he didn't read a whole lot, but he knew that there was some really good stuff in there. And the funny thing is, they didn't get the joke that Walter Raleigh was actually making fun of the aristocracy.
Yeah.
And
Aki, you're probably right, but I'm sure that that moniker is already out there with me for sure. When it gains further traction, they'll be likely to add conspiracy theorists to that list.
I think they already got that on.
They already got that one. Well, the thing is that it's a great ad hominem attack to use because it's so dismissive, right? Even though every law enforcement agency in the country actually has a conspiracy division, and people get charged with conspiracy every day. So apparently they do happen. Just kind of saying that. Jeanette with a great question. Is anyone familiar with the Rossignol family of cryptologists from France 1600s? Absolutely.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, and that was one of the clues, Jeanette, that allowed me to identify the encrypted course that you can set in the 1612 Champlain map. It leads directly to Oak Island because the starting point is labeled as Port Rossignol in Nova Scotia, where it's the modern day location of Liverpool today. And the way it was spelled as the name of the Rossignol family, who were cryptologists. So that clued me in that was a part of the clue that would lead to the cipher within it. So,
and there were Rossignol skis, and there are Bacon skis.
Go figure.
What the heck is that all about? It's a Canadian thing.
Jake, Jeff's got to run in a sec, but Jake, Jeff, I just want one more question for you before you got to head out. What do you think's going on at the Eye? I know this is your last show. It's a short one, right? But I just want your take on what you think's going on there.
Well, it's I would love for it to be a seal, some sort of a seal to a hat, to an entrance to something. But I don't know that it would be. But the simple fact, and that's like this little video I just put out a few hours ago. I took a clip of Tom and I talking about it from last Wednesday night, and the fact that those rocks are set up in a circle, and the fact that there's that blue clay down there and nothing grows in that hole. It's a hole where the spring is to the north of it and drains down towards it and ends up filling it up, and then the rest of the swamp. So with those stones being laid out in a circle like that, and then there being the blue clay in there, it tells me that it's man-made. Somebody went in and manipulated that to serve that a particular function. Is it really the eye of, like the all-seeing eye that's on top of the pyramid? That's a stretch to say it is, but man, you look at the things that line up to that, like on our dollar bill and things like that. And Tom said, put it in plain sight. They were, Masons, they were in, they love to put things in plain sight for you to figure it out. So it tells me it was man-made. I would love for it to be an opening, or if they were able to excavate it, dry it out and excavate it, maybe it would reveal some other clue. Whether or not they'll ever get to that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just letting us off because we want them to do that.
No, I appreciate you
make us watch for another 15 years.
I know you just did a special. I didn't get to catch that one. That's the only thing I haven't seen. But I wanted to get your take.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. There's too many, and that's like Jake had mentioned it earlier when we were first talking about the things that are on the island. They haven't found treasure yet, but there's so much that they have found. And the simple fact that they keep finding these things that were obviously manipulated by mankind, it just throws that question out there. Who in the hell was doing this, and why? What was your reasoning behind building these platform in the swamp and the road in the swamp and all the stuff that they're finding everywhere?
And the connections you have, like everybody was connected on that island, and everybody who stepped onto that island was connected to something else.
Yeah, all the clues that they found over from 900. Well, there's some stuff that goes BC, but I don't know if that really connects. But 900 to 1790, 1800. There's so many, all the different people. There is a connection between them all the way along. It's just that's. Yeah.
Well, what people forget about Bacon, because he lived with the wrong people, so to speak, was that his mother, Mary Queen of Scots, was very connected to the Templars.
Exactly.
His father's family was connected to the Templars in various sundry things, the Malta people, and these people grew up. And I think the Bacons probably also, but she was kind of a little bit of a strict Puritan type of person. So I don't know if it came from her. I assume if he learned things like that, it probably came from his father. But,
his father's family.
I forget that.
I think that, I've always thought that, and Jeff, thank you for taking the time. I know you got to run. But, as far as that goes, think that when Queen Elizabeth sent Bacon back to France with Amias Paulet when he was 16 for a few years, and then he traveled Europe the way young princes would when they came of age at 16. I think that when he went to his uncle's court, that a lot of knowledge was passed along. And, listen, if your father were alive today, this is what he would want you to know. And that's exactly what would have happened, because they literally, when Bacon arrived there, they rolled out the red carpet. And, historians still wonder, why was he
why was he? Yeah.
So warmly
that was
welcomed.
One of the reasons they thought he was Elizabeth's son.
But it makes more sense that he was, this is my nephew.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes so much more sense. So,
plus, because he didn't know the uncle didn't know what was going to happen.
That's right.
His other, the heirs there might not have survived. And it was very likely that in those days that people didn't survive. So there was a story that people who were in the royal families, like the guys in the royal families, the heirs, there was a book. They say that they had a book and they passed it on to the next generation, but they learned it from childhood.
Right.
And I would love to know whether or not that's true.
Actually, there's an image that shows that, and I'll share it with you after the show.
But that's where a lot of secrets were kept.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to back out. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, Jake,
Jeff.
and Adam, and Zee. Thanks.
It's always a pleasure.
I got a chance to talk to you. Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited about some of the stuff you guys have coming out. I can't wait.
You're gonna love it.
Keep up the good work, Jeff.
Oh, thank you. Yep. But I throw that out to both of you, all three of you. If you have any, I know you have your own sources to put information out, but if you have a little article, something you want to add and contribute to the website, I would love to put it on there for you. So
100%.
I will do.
Always, appreciate your support, Jeff. Thanks for coming on. You're always such a great co-host and guest, and I love being on your show. And when I
can't wait to have you on again.
Well, believe me,
you do a darn good interview there.
Yes, absolutely. And when the time comes, you're going to be one of the first people who knows what I know.
Sounds great. All right. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. So,
I got to imagine you got a lot of chat stuff there, Jake.
That's what I'm trying to catch up on.
See if there's anything that they need us to.
They've hung in.
Answer.
Yeah, you guys are great. I mean, it's been
a long time. This is a good one.
Well, yeah, it's been a long time since I've done, over an hour. We're an hour 37 now, and we're still going.
I know. I come home to watch this thing, and it's over before you know it.
John's not here because you're watching the Ravens game, right?
Watching the Ravens game.
Yeah.
It's a close one.
It is. I texted him. I said earlier today because he tried to call me this morning, and I was in the other room and I couldn't get to my phone, and so I texted him back, and all I said was "Go Bills." That went over well. Yeah.
Yeah, he loved that.
They're trying to score right now.
Oh, you're watching it while I do this. Is great.
Yeah, I got the game over here in the background. And with Jason's wife's birthday, right?
Yeah, Jason's wife's birthday. And then
Frank's birthday was last week.
What's that?
Frank's birthday was last week.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Frank.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Frank. Let's see. There's a level of ignorance required in the eyes of the faithful. Facts are a hard sell these days. Achy, wiser words never spoken. Isn't that true? And Jenny, of course, right on point. Anyone who goes against the accepted tend not to be believed in until a long time after. Then everyone acts like they knew they were right all along. It's so right, Jenny. And AO has
look at Mark Twain. He wrote a book on this, and nobody paid attention to it.
Absolutely, and AO,
and he was a well-loved, considered person.
And he was, one of the most famous people of his time. And AO with the point, academia is similar to science. They're so entrenched in their own bubbled opinions, they prefer to dismiss things that go against their narratives, even when they're proven wrong. Yeah, and when we encounter information, and this is human nature, gang. We encounter information that goes directly against what we think we know. It causes cognitive dissonance. It's uncomfortable. We either have to absorb the information and finally accept it and say, okay, I guess I was wrong, or we simply dismiss it to protect our own narratives. And so in this day and age, people are far more likely to just dismiss it, unfortunately.
Well, Bacon and Raleigh made a decision, whether or not they were forced into the decision or not to proceed to try to, and they could have done things to become king if they really wanted to. I mean, you kill people off. That's how a lot of the kings made it into the thing. So they made a conscious decision to do something else with their lives. But the fact is that they may have had concern that, when this is uncovered, that suddenly it's going to be the end of the whole monarchy and the royal family. And while that may have been a good idea, they still had kind of a thing in their heart that is like, you don't really want to take these people out, do you?
Yeah. And in all honesty, I believe, and again, this is based on my research, I've made it, I would call it a speculation, and I'm going to couch it as a speculation, but I think it's an inference that's logical. And that is that I think that Sir Francis Bacon had negotiated with Queen Elizabeth for Walter to step up into the throne and succeed her as king when she died. I think that Essex's rebellion put an end to that deal. I think she said, screw you guys, I'm giving it to your younger brother. And after her son was, had to be killed, Robert Devereux. And so I think that the main plot that landed Walter Raleigh in the Tower of London was actually not to put Arabella Stuart on the throne, but himself. I think he was going to say, hey, James, you're in my chair, and then I think it was Bacon who prevented
the negotiator
who said, listen, guys, knock it off. Walter, he's king. Let it go. Go be king of the seven seas. And that's what he did. And so I think that, that is how it kind of transpired there. But, and of course, we do have the ciphertext saying that they really wanted to come over here in the colonies and set up shop for themselves. So David Neeson with a great quote: all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. And again, of course, that was by author Schopenhauer. Thanks for that, David. So true.
Curious if
I had a question for Jake.
Okay. David's gotten any further with the fiber
Walter
stuff. I'd love to hear new stuff.
Ever in any of his aliases use Gaultier, which would be Walter in French?
Yes. And I think that Walter used the values for Gaultier actually show up on occasion. Okay. And the other thing too is I think that Walter Raleigh was using. There was someone going around and opposing James in Scotland, and his name was Francis Stewart. I'm pretty sure that was Walter taking his.
We got a lot on that.
Yeah, so I think that was something that was going on
for sure. Zee, that's a great thought, because Jake and I have what we call like a Bacon code book and all the cipher values, and you really have to put like Mary in the French version and the Scottish.
Mary twice.
Yeah, it's you have to have the spellings all right, because he will use every single one of them. He employs every trick in the book.
Yeah, and
I have a database that it's incomplete of all the numbers and all the different things that can go with it.
Yeah, the one I made
in a different order.
Yeah, I shared it with shared the one I made with both of you, I think, and then you both have expanded on it. But I want to address something if people are watching this, because when you start looking at all of these different spellings and all of these different, suddenly you have sequential numbers where any number could mean something, right? Which in my second book, or my last book, I referred to as Bacon's code book, much like Francis Walsingham's code book. In Francis Walsingham's code book, he had over 500 sequential numbers, each of which had their own individual meaning. With Bacon's cipher, however, it works differently than that, because you have these values that you can calculate based upon the spellings, but they only take on a meaning within a proper context. So in this way, he was able to use context specifically as the clue that drives it forward. And without that context, the numbers are just numbers. So people say, well, Jake, that's called saturation, and that means that any number can mean something. It doesn't work that way at all. And you both have already seen this, the way the numbers correlate in all of the ciphers, and with the same exact numbers that mean the same thing. The example I always use is the Walter Raleigh pearl portrait. With the logo on it. It all, when you add it up in all 5 ciphers, it adds up to the values of Walter Stewart the First. And so that cannot possibly be a coincidence.
No, just a tail on that. There's one of the plays he talks about remuneration. I want to give you remuneration, and he says it's much better than a French crown. So all your ciphers are literally in French. You have to look for the words that appear in French. So he does give you instructions on what to do. You got to use your wit. Remarkable.
Yeah, I have Latin translator. I do a lot. I wish I took Latin in school.
Me too. I do the same thing, and throughout this whole.
But thank goodness we have Google. They didn't have that before when people were doing. I look up stuff all the time.
Me too. And, the funny thing is that I've learned more Latin and French doing this research than, I probably would have learned, in high school.
In a lifetime.
Yeah.
And the third meaning of it, too.
Yeah.
Jake, we could stay here till midnight and really celebrate your birthday.
Yeah, no, it's getting there.
Any great chats?
That's what I'm looking for. Let's see.
The faithful have hung in there with us, man.
I know. It's like we still have 30 live viewers, and
they're the best, aren't they?
They are.
Yep.
The only thing better than that is my girlfriend, who just brought me another drink. She's so good. I didn't even say anything.
That's a good one.
I'm not even done with my last one yet, and she walked over very quietly.
That's a good one.
All right. Oh, yeah, here's a good comment. Jenny's so spot. Well, nowadays conspiracies become true in a few months to a year, so there's that. Absolutely true, Jenny. That's so true. And yeah, Amy, Adventures in Pixieland is saying, wait, some schools here don't make kids read Donkey. No, they don't. In fact,
I never had to read it.
I didn't have to read it, but I did.
Not in my school either.
It pains me to say it, but I know.
I saw the shows.
I know for a fact that a lot of schools have stopped teaching Shakespeare as well.
We're still doing it.
Did you see that Scotland thing that I posted?
I did. I loved it. Yeah.
That was like really scary because they're not gonna teach Shakespeare in schools anymore in Scotland. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, well, when they find out he was Scottish, they will.
Well, yeah, right. That's so funny. I saw that. It cracked me up. But the funny thing is that kids today, they don't read. They it's just one of those things that I faced as an educator. That was the biggest challenge, was just trying to inspire an interest in reading. And one of the things that I really appealed to was their sense of freedom, and let them know that there's a reason why back before the Civil War, slave owners were not allowed to teach their slaves to read and write, because once they could do that, they could, be free. And they have to understand that this is a fundamental skill in order to, maintain a free country. And I don't know what to think about that. And the problem is that,
they don't know math either. I know.
No, they don't.
I substitute taught for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so
you do it all.
The kids. Yeah, I've been a little of everything at one point in my life.
Let's see.
You do it all.
Yep.
But if they're ever on a deserted island, they're never going to be able to build a hut because they don't know enough math to do that.
Yeah.
It's going to fall down.
The thing is that one of the
Not
things
without a calculator.
right. One of the things I tried to do as a teacher was really kind of instill the idea that the things that they're learning actually are practical and useful. And, I had a student, ask me, well, when am I ever going to use, this kind of math? Why do I have to? And I said, well, you have to understand. I said, as you practice those math skills, what you're really doing are you're developing pathways in your brain for problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And the harder you work at those, the more you do those, the firmer those pathways become. So then when you're out in the world and you have to solve a problem, those pathways are developed and you will use those connections in your brain to solve the problem, even though you don't realize you're using that math. It's not that you're going to sit down and have to do this calculation. It's
right.
That
And
the
yeah.
exercise of doing it is what is the important part,
Nail on the head, Jake. Nail on
Yeah.
the head.
Well, they didn't, like, my daughter never got to play on her own out running around the neighborhood like I did when I was a kid. We built forts, we did all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And we had this problem solve all the time at very young ages. But they had play dates, and because there were stranger danger and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that way everywhere in the country, but, I lived in a nice suburban town and all kinds of bad stuff happened. So you had to kind of watch out.
Absolutely. Barbara posts.
Isn't that something?
This is great. It's been that way for a while. I took a guided reading class in high school and read The Prince. My teacher blushed and said, well, I haven't read it. So, yeah. That's also a big part of the problem, Let's see. Oh, we have some comments about the Eye of the Swamp. Let's see.
Oh, I know an Eye of the Swamp thing that I have a comment. Everybody says it has to be man-made because of the stones around it. Well, Fred Nolan could have put those stones on one of the times that he ended up draining the swamp. We don't know who put those stones there like that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't use that as my basis for what's going on there.
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of the work that's been done in the swamp too. Like the Stone Road. They dated it because there was a stick under it that dated to a certain, but that means that the road was over the top of the stick. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, it doesn't date the road so much as it tells us when it was built after. Right. Kat's asking, was Da Vinci ever in France? And would it be when Bacon was there? That's a great. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I don't know that.
No, they didn't live at the same times. But
Da Vinci was earlier. Yeah.
I have been playing with Da Vinci.
Yeah.
And Bacon together. And
I don't know if he was in France.
Bacon's final house, Da Vinci's final house was owned by Francis I. And it's actually a royal household there. And when Da Vinci died, they made it into a museum.
Oh, wow.
The whole thing. And it's in France, not in Italy. That's where the museum is.
Wow.
But there's just too many coincidences. And I was there once. And when I started doing this, it started being like catching my eye.
Yeah.
And It's said that there's a tunnel between the house and the royal palace or castle that's in that area.
Oh, wow.
And that they used to go back and forth. But wouldn't that be a wonderful place to leave a whole bunch of paintings?
It sure would. Oh, that's so cool. What a great idea. Let's see. Jan, that's because we're a bunch of chatterboxes. Stephanie, thanks for coming.
Hey, Stephanie.
Happy birthday, Bacon. Sorry not to be around much, but I'm a nomad right now. And so, yeah, Stephanie and I have been talking. She was going to try to pop in with us, but she has a lot going on. Like she said, she's a nomad right now. But they finally have found their place and they're getting ready to get settled. So that's great news.
Stephanie, good to hear you on here. I know that you're the music guru. I would love to get your eyes on a decryption that I have. Jake's seen it. I don't know if you remember it, Jake, but the final bells that are tolling.
Yeah. And
it's so good. Go ahead.
First thing I said was, we got to get Stephanie to take a look at this because I know that she would have an insight for you.
Yeah, it's remarkable the way the notes hit.
Amazing. Hey, Frank.
I'm almost 100% certain that Bacon created violins. Like
you would mention that to me once.
Did them.
You would
it keeps popping up, and the Medici family, was involved in some of it, and one of the violins surfaced, and it had stuff on it that I recognized to be Bacon.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you first mentioned that to me, I started thinking about it, and once again, it makes perfect sense. And it's funny. She's not watching tonight, but one time Erin King and I were talking, and she was kind of joking. She goes, "Oh, come on, Jake, they couldn't all be Bacon." And I started laughing. I said, "No, I know they couldn't all be Bacon, but this guy was, and what people tend to forget, we as this is something kind of like a mantra I always repeat on the show. I find myself repeating it because it's an important idea. We as modern people tend to assume that their lives were like ours, and Francis Bacon and Walter Raleigh weren't waking up in the morning, walking into work and punching a time clock and sitting there in drudgery for 8 hours every day,
and have to go shopping and go do their laundry and pick up the car, and
they weren't doing any of that. Z. Yeah. So we don't imagine if you were a true Renaissance man or woman and truly did develop these skills and education and talents throughout your childhood, because listen, they didn't have any distractions, so this is why they had a college education at the age of 16, right? So they were just that was their entertainment. And I now know that the stuff that we're uncovering was what Bacon and Raleigh did as their entertainment. They were having fun doing this, right? As much fun as we're having when we decrypt it. So really think
but I think there was a dearth of people and men and heirs at the time.
Yeah.
And the Cecils, especially the father, were very well involved in this whole word thing because he got money out of it.
Right.
Okay. He got a lot of money out of it. And so they would take bastards and other people that showed up that were actually of the aristocracy, but they didn't have the right whatever, and they would place these kids all over the place.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what happened to Essex and Penelope.
Yes.
They were both children of Elizabeth.
Yes. As was Southampton. Yeah.
And Southampton too.
The three of them were.
That's why Bacon tried to save him.
Yeah.
He was really trying, because James wasn't going to have anything to do with him. And
no. And Bacon,
the great negotiator again.
He was trying to, keep peace in the family. And then that's what he did with, at the end. And this brings us to Kat's question. Do you think Elizabeth would have declared Devereux as king if he had not died? No, I don't think he would. She would. So. What do you guys think?
No. She didn't have any reason to do it because if she did, she would immediately have lost her position, I think.
Well,
and it wasn't worth it to her. But when she thought he died, I think it really hit her.
Well, it did.
And she declined very quickly after that.
Yeah, only a month and a half, I think she died. It was within months.
It's like a year, I thought. I don't know.
A couple months.
Couple months, I thought.
She really took that hard, and could she have done something about it? Maybe, but maybe not.
But I think she was afraid to, because the reason I say no, Kat, is because his father, the Queen's favorite, Robert, who's named after his father,
who may have been her husband.
Who may have been
undeclared,
but he was not of high enough nobility for the other, royal families of Europe to recognize any offspring from him. So when you look at the lineages, when you look at the bloodlines, they really were very strict about how they decided, the succession. So Devereaux would not have been of high enough noble blood.
And he had her temperament, which was not necessarily very good.
Which is why they constantly fought.
He was a bit of a loose cannon, and that caused problems.
Yeah, and also Elizabeth kind of blamed Bacon because she basically wanted Bacon to control him. You please advise him, keep him under control. And
which he tried, but
he tried, but he also had Walter Raleigh pushing his buttons. Okay,
and he was controlling Raleigh too.
Yep. And so,
and a whole bunch of other people for James. When James got in,
that's right.
Part of the thing when he got up for the one trial and said that he knew for certain that the person had not killed Overby.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's because he was Overby. And it was like everybody kind of stopped. It was like, okay, he knows this.
Yeah, but
it was all fake.
I'm looking at the message. Frank, when's your birthday? Is it today? Frank has a birthday here too. Happy birthday! Is it today?
No, it was last Wednesday.
Yeah, I thought it was like a week.
Still, happy birthday, Frank! You're in the January club. Cheers to you.
Cheers to him. Everybody's birthday in January here, Jake.
Bacon birthday bash.
And his father was Francis, and he's
third
Francis.
one.
Yep.
And maybe grandfather. I don't know.
Yeah,
my father.
Three's the magic number, Jake.
It is. It is indeed.
Don't tell me that there's a third one.
Third what?
Kid.
A third what?
You said three's the magic number.
No, I just meant this is the third birthday bash.
Third birthday bash. There we
go.
But
it is a magic number.
I thought you were going to bring in Mary Sydney here.
Very important.
I got stuff on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should talk.
We should talk about Mary Sydney at some point. Maybe the three of us should do a show on Mary Sydney soon, because her name comes up
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There is a person in the authorship debate thing who believes that there's an awful lot in Shakespeare from Mary Sydney.
Yeah, I think so too.
I put our brains together on this one.
Names and all kinds of places, and
I've always thought so. And that was, when I did that chapter in my last book, she was one of the people named, I think. So it's really interesting. So let's see.
But they didn't have enough people is really what it came down to. And they were losing heirs right and left, I think. And what they ended up having to do was these other people were stepping in. Now, I don't know if there were other people besides Bacon and Raleigh that did this, and probably there were. And I don't know when we're going to find that out. But I think other people had to do two roles in order for the whole aristocracy to maintain itself.
Yeah, and even at that point, and I wish I could say more, but one of the decryptions I just did reveals, who some of the other heirs may have been. And so people have asked me 100 times, if Bacon had children. There's no record of it. And every time I always answer the same thing. I'm like, I haven't found any evidence whatsoever that says that, but now I have.
Oh, you have?
I have. Other people have hinted at the same thing, but my information is different from theirs. And that's all I'm allowed to say. But I can't wait to kind of break that news on the show.
They must have gotten him drunk.
Maybe. Well, he does admit that he did lust. So we'll say that.
I think he was in love from being the woman in France.
Marguerite.
He maintained it. Yeah, he maintained writing letters to her for 25 years or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I once made the joke. I said, well, that would have been his aunt. And I think if I remember right, Chris
That
Morford.
wouldn't stop. And
That's what Chris Morford said. He says, "Well, you know those crazy Royals back then." I said, "Oh, that's true." And Stephanie says she used to play the violin and always wondered what the purpose was. That's funny.
Because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty to look at, but I wouldn't let my daughter play because I didn't want to spend 5 years hearing it screech before it would sound good.
Before it sounded nice, yeah. Let's see. Oh, Tom's leaving. Have a good night, Tom. Glad you could join us. Dakota Ring and Jenny also were discussing Ryan Plaster's work, his search, which is always interesting. I like to keep my eyes on that, and I got to have him come back on the show sometime soon. Oh, Barbara Duncan with this little tidbit. Rick Lagina's birthday is January 22nd, the same as Big.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
How about what the connection has never stopped coming?
I'd completely forgotten that his birthday was on. Yeah, it's true.
They usually plaster that all over the place, but I've been busy.
Yeah.
And what was was everybody's phones going off all day Friday and Saturday? Like with all these.
Oh, the alerts.
Everybody and their brother. No, not alerts. Just everybody was online. And I was having to respond to all these people, which is fine, but it was like I couldn't put my phone down without it going off again.
Yeah.
Probably because of the holiday on Monday. People took off Friday. And
well, Tommy, their name wasn't Bacon. I'll tell you that much. But it's going to take me some time. I have corroborating evidence that I didn't realize I had until I read this message, and I went back and looked at it, and sure enough, I do have corroborating evidence. I've already done a show on it. I'll tell you that much, but I left out the information that, yeah, Bacon may have had children. So. I love it, Barbara. Children with bacon bits.
That's good. That's good. That's
good one, Barbara.
So, anything else for the good of the order, folks? I mean, we still have we're still up at 27 live viewers, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with us for a full 2 hours.
The faithful. This is our longest one, right, Jake?
Yeah. Well, I had one marathon where I think John Anders and I went for like 3 hours once, but yeah, this is one of the longest ones I've had in a long time. I usually try to keep it down to an hour, be mindful of people's times, but this is so much fun just hanging out and talking to you guys. And that's, people, it was funny. Z was like, well, what are we going to talk about? I said, whatever you want.
We can go all night. I mean, it just happens, but Jake, I'd love to, at some point, man, get your ear off screen. And then later on, maybe come on the show again, if you'll ever have me.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome at any time, Adam. I have, let's see, tomorrow is my birthday. We have some plans, but nothing serious, but we'll hang out after the show. We'll set up a time and take a look at what you have. And I want to show you what I found in my current decryptions, just because this last one was just brutal. And
I can't wait. And like you, I'm most excited to share it with everybody.
Oh, me too.
That's what I really can't wait to get to. So
yeah. So so if we can, I'll help you vet whatever you have, and if you want to help me too, that'd be, if you have time. And we can kind of compare notes and then figure out how we're gonna go ahead and debut all the info. Do a big deal. So, and Z, always a pleasure, my friend.
Z, great stuff.
Nice meeting you, Adam, too.
You too.
Yeah.
Like great to meet you.
Yeah, we should probably, do this every few episodes where we all just kind of powwow and get in and just kind of shoot the breeze about what
I had a really good question for Bill Smith.
Oh, I know. I'm sure you do. But he was busy tonight, I think. And it's funny. Our collaboration that he and I have is, it's one of those things where, we just kind of, whenever we get together, just kind of complete each other's sentences and say, oh, by the way. And one of the things that he and I have coming up, I'm going to talk him into. I'm going to twist his arm a little bit and see if I can get him to come on the podcast, and we'll dish a few teasers out of what we've been up to. But just let me know, Z. I can, if you want, I'll reach out to him and have him get a hold of you so that, I'm pretty sure
No,
that
I think we need to do this one on the air.
Oh, okay.
For document for posterity or something like that.
Okay. Okay. I'll see if I can.
Because the two of you weren't telling each other anything for the longest time, and
No,
I
we weren't.
really want to hear how that all went down.
Well, I'll tell you my side of it, and then what I'll do is I'll have him come on and he'll spill his side, okay? And you'll you know what? I want, when we do that, Z, why don't you host the show and Ghosts of Bacon, and Bill and I will be your guests. How does that sound?
Great.
We'll do that. We'll do it that way. And it was funny because it was one of my trips to Canada, and once again I said, well, hey, what information do you have about X location? And his jaw drops. He says, where did you come up with that one? And when I said, it's one of the decryptions I've been working on. It's right there. It spells it out. He goes, okay. He says, I'm about to share everything with you that I haven't shared with you before. Here it goes. And so we're in a hotel room, and he just pulls out his laptop and just starts dishing information. And I pull out mine and I start showing him everything I've been doing. And his jaw's dropping. We're looking at each other, and it just all overlapped, and we've been super excited.
I know he was doing Easton for like 20 years or something like
that.
Oh
yeah. And not
did he run into Raleigh at all?
He
during that time period?
He did, because Raleigh was in charge of the area of Ireland where Easton was known to operate out of.
Hang out. Yeah.
Okay, he was governor there, or Grand Poopah, whatever you want to call him. But so he was kind of interested in that. And when I kind of spelled it out to him, he says, it makes just so much sense. And
it all fell into place.
Yeah. When he saw me on Jeff's show, go figure. And he reached out to me. He says, I just have one question for you. I said, yeah, sure, Bill. What is it? He says, was Easton an alias? I said, yes, he was. He goes, I knew it. It's so.
But he probably thought it was bacon, right?
Yeah, I think
because there was a bacon thing in the episode that he did.
Yeah, but it makes sense that there was a bacon thing in the episode, right? They were operating together.
There was a location right there, right across the street from where he was.
Yeah. And so when we went to Newfoundland, that was one of our stops, and he gave me a tour. It was just amazing, and can't wait to go back this spring. But I'll get a hold of Bill and we'll see what we can do. But it's just been a lot of fun, collaborating with him, and the way our information, just fits together hand in glove. It's really pretty amazing. So,
did James McQuiston ever get to you about the other thing that you have to?
No.
talked about? He's very like, you got to see it in the book.
Yeah, but he's a great guy. He's a great researcher.
I love his books.
His books aren't they great, Adam?
Good.
And so he and I had talked about that a few times. He says, well, I guess it's possible, but you have to remember, it's when you are a researcher and you're looking at these primary sources, the standard operating procedure for a researcher, a historian, that's what they do. He's doing the right thing. He's following, the protocols of doing solid research. And so you certainly can't slight him for that. And let's be honest, the reputation that, Baconian cipher research has is not good, with very good reason. And so, when good people like him and others, kind of say, well, that's possible. I find what you do very interesting, but, I'm not into ciphers. That's their polite way of saying I don't believe in ciphers. And which is fine. Cortland, also another person who said that to me, and
that's also why we haven't answered this question first.
Well, I know, believe me, I know, but you have to remember these are really good historians. These are really good researchers. They're very good at what they do. These are intelligent people, and I consider them both friends. But I understand why there's that hesitancy, because the world of Bacon cipher research has been so tainted for so long. And this is why even though people have approached me, academics have approached me and said, if you didn't come out so strong against these certain people, who came out with these cipher messages back at the turn of the century, the, Francis Bacon Society, for example, might be more, likely to listen to your information. I said, if I don't denounce all of the garbage research they did,
didn't do it right.
They didn't do it right. See, so if I don't take a stand and say that was wrong, and we now have it right, we could lose our credibility. And for me, I think that's a very, very important thing for all of us to maintain. And this is why when you guys do what you do the way you do it, I'm just so gratified by that, because it just
well, the NSA guy used Bacon code. I mean, he denied it in court, and he put it on his tombstone.
Yeah. Well, did you see the episode where John and I decrypted that tombstone?
Yeah.
It's right
I had looked at that before you guys had done that, and I mean, this guy went around saying, "Nope, didn't happen that way."
Yeah,
and it didn't, but. Because Elizabeth, whatever her name was, she didn't do it right.
Oh no, she didn't do it right at all. And that the thing that William and Elizabeth Freeman did, Freedman, that did wrong. They dismissed every theory of Baconian encryptions of the Shakespeare material that people did, but there was one that was actually correct. And they dismissed it with the rest of them. And so it was actually a legitimate form of a cipher called a capital letter cipher, similar to what I used in decrypting the sonnets. And they dismissed that one. They threw the baby out with the bathwater. The rest of it was garbage. And I think that someone... whether it was
brought it to his attention later, and then
maybe I'm not sure, but they did, and they also in their document that talks about Baconian ciphers and Shakespeare. If you get a chance to read it, it's actually on the CIA website. Go figure. It's a PDF. I've read it multiple times. They included
the CIA coming after me.
Yeah, whatever. They have access to whatever they want to have access to. I'm not hiding from them. But no, none of us are. But what's funny is, I read it, and they did include a biliteral cipher in it that said, "I did not write the plays, F. Bacon." Okay, that's the only mention that they put in there regarding Baconian ciphers being legitimate. Meanwhile, they also included basically a blueprint for other cryptologists to follow. If you ever do want to find a Baconian cipher, this is how you should do it. And so I read that, and that's what I've been doing this whole time. And so
they recognized it, but they didn't want to tell.
Yeah, they definitely recognized
it. They recognized it.
And their time period, you have to realize they were trying to save this country. So absolutely. Telling people anything that about codes and stuff like that was not a good idea.
Absolutely.
At the time.
Yeah. And again, it's like all of a sudden it was the end of World War II, and then all of a sudden the Cold War starting. So they finally get a chance to retire, and they returned to where they had started, which was Baconian ciphers and Shakespeare. And so they decided to analyze the work that all these other people did. And they just basically said, none of this is legit. It debunked it. And so since then, the Sir Francis Bacon Society has kind of gone after Elizabeth and William Freeman. and basically pointed out that, you know, they also threw out this one that was actually a legitimate decryption. So does that mean that the rest of what they did was wrong? No, it doesn't. It's illogical to say that. They legit, and the thing is, the very basis of the theory that Bacon was the son of Queen Elizabeth I is based upon all of this garbage cryptology that they did back then. And so, you know, that's the problem. So Elizabeth and Freeman have to be wrong. I have to be wrong. You have to be wrong. And you know, they get to be right in the face of truth. So unfortunately, you know, the very people who say that, you know, they praise or prize the truth above all else, well, I guess not.
Yeah, but if you're a spy, you lie. That's what Bacon and Raleigh did. That's why they had all these aliases. That's why they were, you know, trying to save England from going down the tubes and trying to build it up. That's what all the paintings are about.
Absolutely.
So there was purpose to their lying, that, you know, they were seeking truth, but
Bingo.
they had to lie to seek the truth.
And, you know, that's the funny thing, is that it's the light and shadow. They used both, right? One A is in the light, one A is in the shadow. So one of them is you know, symbolized by the sun, the other one symbolized by the moon. And so they were using the truth, but they were also using lies. And they were using both to their own ends, because Bacon says that he, you know, wanted to, you know, basically his domain was all truth, right? All truth would be his domain. Well, he wanted to be the king of truth. So that means he gets to control it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean he's never necessarily going to say it all the time, but he definitely encrypted it, the truth, in everything he touched, and so did Raleigh. So
well, any politician, or, you know, even lawyers, I mean, they're defending people and prosecuting people, and they're not going to bring in something that's out of the bounds of doing that. You know, if they're prosecuting somebody, they're not going to tell anything about the guy having been seen by somebody else walking down the street at another place. They didn't.
Right. Oh, great comments here. Let's see. Dakota Ring says Olivier at Oak Island Research Channel has been doing fantastic. I know, fantastic analysis of ancient maps, documents, and illustrations. Thanks, Dakota Ring. We're going to send people over his way. Check that out if you haven't already.
And well,
I haven't seen all of his
shut
videos.
down his thing. Dot to Dot also, who ended up working with Olivier. The two of them worked together.
Yeah.
Olivier was kind of out there more with theories and ideas, and he could see things in it. And Michael did more of the geometry.
Yeah.
Well,
hence the name Dot to Dot. I mean, that was Michael's thing, was, you know, making sure that everything connected, right?
Connect the dots.
Yeah.
But he's sort of semi-retired. He came out recently to say something or other. The first time I saw the Rochefoucauld manuscript, I knew that our guys had done that. I knew it.
And the problem is that anytime you mention Rochefoucauld, all of a sudden, you know, we're dipping our toe in the Xena Halpern material, and you know, she got so much of it right, but there were parts of it that she got wrong, and people don't want to hear about, you know, if she got anything wrong. So that is a challenge, but you know, when you look at it, I mean, like you said, Z. But you know, you guys have to remember, I mean, the three of us and Jason and Will, when we see their material, we look at it, we know it, we recognize it immediately, right?
Because we looked at so much.
We've seen it so much that we see their signposts right away.
It's so easy to spot.
Well, it is. It's easy for us because we've
at this point,
yeah.
Well, they stuff these things in old books too. They managed, you know, they had people putting books together and adding pages, which was one of the techniques that they used for births in England, because Elizabeth actually passed a law that said that the churches were no longer allowed to write the birth records in a row, like 10 people on a page or anything like that. They must do it 1 page per person, which costs these poor churches a lot of money, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But that helped the spies that were having to put things into those records.
To add people names that they created. Absolutely. And Dakota Ring, it states, I wish Court Lindo could share at regular intervals on his channel. His understanding of geodesy reminds me of Karl Monkinism. It does remind you of Karl Monk's work for sure. Court's research is excellent. He's an amazing researcher and writer, and just an overall good person. I enjoy him a lot.
And he sees all the family connections and the friend connections that are so important to, like, all the Masonic stuff. I mean,
you took the words right out of my mouth. See, it's like when he's like a dog on a bone. You know what I mean? Once he gets a hold of something, he's going to continue to connect those dots and figure out what the connections are between these people. And when he and I were talking about my information, I mentioned earlier, he's like, well, I don't know a lot about ciphers, but what you're saying makes sense and it tracks with what I've researched. And his research, when I read it, I said, oh my gosh, he's talking about the lost Stuart kings. Well,
we know where they are.
we know who they are. And so, and he was like, well, it makes sense. And so, I like Court because he does have an open mind and he's willing to, acknowledge that. Well, that could be true. So yeah.
Do we know when Raleigh died?
We don't. I'm waiting to see if that message comes up in what I'm doing right now.
I would have thought he would have died before Francis, but
yeah, I have Francis.
I'm pretty sure where he's buried.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
In Grant's tomb?
Not exactly, but I tracked, as I've said before on the podcast, Francis to the age of 88,
right.
At least, and he was at the execution of Charles I, and he recorded that in an engraving.
People didn't live to be 88 in those days. That was like really
cool. People would have thought that he was, immortal at that point, which is why maybe the legend exists that he was immortal.
The whole Saint Germain thing probably got started.
We could very well be. Let's see. Yeah, Lynn, the work by Olivier and Dot to Dot is really, really good stuff for sure. Let's see. Oh, Barbara just corrected us.
January 25th.
Rick was born on the 25th.
Isn't that the day that all the planets are supposed to get together?
Yeah, they are. Maybe he'll make a revelation.
An alignment of planets.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll find something that day.
Yes, idols of the mind, idols of the tribe, and the marketplace for sure. Aki, once again, what with the irony? Good observation, my friend.
We have a lot of people who haven't been on the podcast for a while.
Yeah. Here's Amy saying, yes, Court said all the genealogy I presented on my podcast with you, Jake, is all correct. Yeah. He told me the same thing, Amy. Well done. Good.
What I like is that Jefferson had a picture of Bacon created.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Kat wants to know, do you think that the spy works of Henry VIII and previous monarchs were as elaborate as Liz's? That's a great question.
That's a good question. It's possible.
Yeah, anything's possible, but
maybe he taught to her,
Could very well be, he was Elizabeth's dad, so...
well, you also had to have people who spoke multiple languages and stuff like that, and you had to get the young guys to sneak into these countries in various disguises, and
yep,
it was a big deal what Walsingham managed there.
What he did there, yeah, I think that Walsingham's operation was probably the most complex that the world had seen at that point. Whether or not,
and he had no computers.
No, well, he had Francis
or
Bacon.
Phones.
Francis Bacon.
Yeah, he was the computer.
He did have Francis Bacon. Yes.
Did they ever find the book John Edwards show. Oh, Jenny, the one that Rick put out a video
Yeah.
about. We haven't found that.
It.
Yeah, we haven't found it yet. So there were a couple of leads, but as far as I know, I don't think we've sourced that yet.
We played around with the decryption possibilities a little bit on the was that on the previous website?
Yeah.
It's still there. If it was done, it was still there.
Yeah. John's made progress on that, but I'm not at liberty to really discuss it. So
that's why we were speculating without him.
Yep, that's right.
He's got to be losing his mind that Baltimore scored a touchdown, but they didn't get 2 points. He's got to be glued to this thing right now.
That's awesome, Adam.
I have a friend in the Philadelphia area who's a really big Ravens fan. I'll have to call.
Oh gosh.
Well, I'm a Washington fan. It's been a brutal 2 decades, but I'm finally in good spirits. This has been a good weekend for me.
Well, you ever see the movie Silver Lining with Robert De Niro? Yeah.
Oh
that is the Eagles fan mentality.
That's a Bradley Cooper movie. Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else you got on there, Jake?
Let's see. Shout out to my friend Terry over in Newfoundland. He wasn't able to get in. Just got
Hey, cool. Anybody live farther away than
Let's see.
Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, I think.
New Brunswick, yeah. I think that's it. Well, listen, gang. We've gone for 2.5 hours here. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah, Amy, he's definitely at the game. He's not answering any texts that I send that say "Go Bills."
No, he wouldn't. He will not.
Well, the first time I did it, all he wrote was "boo." All right, so listen, we're gonna wrap it up. I want you guys to kind of hang out here in the green room here for a minute, and we'll wrap up together. But gonna wrap up the show. And I want to,
invite everybody to post some things that, the group can discuss on the what do you call that?
The group? The group
can discuss online or in podcasts.
Yeah, gang. If you have suggestions that you would like to see us do here on the show, go to the Keys of the Rosy Cross and the Ghosts of Bacon group. We still are waiting for members of the Ghosts of Bacon to go ahead and transfer or go over to Keys of the Rosy Cross, our new group, and rejoin that. So that's a group that we have control of, and we can actually moderate it in a better way. So please go over there and join that. If you're new to the podcast or new to this information, please hit like on the YouTube channel and come on over to the subscribe and go ahead and come over to our Facebook group, the Keys of the Rosy Cross. We're easy to find, and join there. And if you have any suggestions or questions, things you would like us to kind of dig into for you and do a show about, post it there and say, hey guys, have anyone looked into this?
Anything.
Pictures, portraits, maps, doesn't matter what it is.
We've got somebody around that probably can help you.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, thanks, gang. Thank you for the birthday wishes for all of us.
Happy birthday,
really appreciate it.
And Raleigh.
Yeah, that's right.
Jake and all the others.
Yeah. So, thanks for joining us tonight, gang. Gonna go ahead and sign us out. And until next time, we'll be doing this again here in a couple of weeks. Not really sure. We'll do maybe Adam, if you want to come on and show us what you found, that'll be fun. And
good stuff. I got good stuff.
You no doubt. So gonna go ahead and sign off, gang. I'm gonna try to cue this up the right way so that. Okay, so. Thank you, Zee. Thank you, Adam. And thanks, Jeff, for coming on. You guys, as always, you don't disappoint. And I just appreciate everything you guys do, for sure.
And we appreciate everything he's done, too.
Oh, thanks, Zee.
Seriously.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that more than you realize. So, all right, gang, here we are signing off, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Happy birthday, Bacon and Raleigh.